Heads up, this podcast features strong language, adult themes, and the occasional colorful metaphor. Listener discretion is advised. As for the views, they're all ours. The smart ones, the spicy ones, and the occasional madness. Skylarkin Media Inc. and its affiliates reserve the right to deny all involvement. It is Monday, April 28th, 2025, and this is the For Outsiders Comics Podcast, powered by Skylarkin Media Inc.
Hey guys, welcome to the Outsiders Comic Book Podcast, powered by Skylarkin Media Inc. We are a podcast that talk about comic books. We're four guys from the Caribbean. We've been here before in another incarnation. We had an original Outsiders podcast, but this is volume 2. I am one of your hosts, Waid, Alleyne, and I'm introducing my other co-hosts. Guys, go ahead.
Oh, my name is Glen Toussaint, and this is my first time doing a podcast with you guys. Just talk about comics.
Well, my name is Michael Tuitt, also a first timer. I look forward to it.
And I am Marc Gibson, returning to the podcasting space. I was one of the original Outsider podcasters from back in the day, and I'm also the brains behind Skylarkin Media.
Lots of brains. Well, let's start things off with the books we're reading currently. If there's any books that you think are exceptional or really tickle your fancy and you want to let people know about it, this is where we do. And if you guys want to write into us and message us and tell us about any books you're enjoying, you can do that as well. I'm going to start us off. The book I wanted to talk about is Justice League Unlimited number 6. That came out last week. Oh, this week, really, sorry. This book is actually part 2 of DC's first all-in era crossover. It's called We Are Yesterday. You've got to kind of go back a couple of years to get a real start. I can't remember the reason though, but the Justice League would have disbanded at some point. This would have led to DC's last crossover called Absolute Power, where Amanda Waller was taking advantage of there being no Justice League, her being forever distrustful of superheroes. She devised a plot to steal everybody's powers and take over the world. Eventually, of course, all the heroes regained their powers. Well, not all of them actually, but we'll get to that. So fast forward to today, Superman and the main Justice League realized that they can't allow something that's happened again. So they reformed the league, but this time it's a hugely expanded roster. It's just like the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Every hero in the DCU is in this group. So right out the gate, the league has been stretched thin by this mysterious group called Inferno, launching a lot of terrorist attacks and stuff all over the world. So the constant pressure has the Justice League unbalanced, and they started to see the truth of Inferno, which is that they're actually the reformed Legion of Doom. And this is the thing, remember I said that everybody had gone about their powers except for, well, not except, but in this issue we learned that John Jones, the Martian Manhunters, his powers actually were taken by Gorilla Grodd. So Grodd is now supercharged, already had these telepathic powers and stuff, but now he's supercharged. And we get the full backstory here, how Grodd corrupts this young superhero called Airwave, who is tied into another story that I don't want to get into now called The Lost Children. He's time displaced from the 1940s, but Grodd uses his powers then to time travel himself back in time and recruit his original Legion of Doom team, because the current Lex Luthor and Sinestro are currently both superheroes now. And the Joker is way too unstable to play with others. So he goes back in time to where Sinestro and Luthor were villains, and the Joker was quote unquote more stable. And he brings them to the future to form this new group with this new plan to take over the world, basically. So in this book now, the League confronts Doom after Airwave realizes that Grodd has been lying to him all the time and using him to gain the League secrets and do whatever else. But after the League confronts the Legion of Doom, they realize it's a trap, and Gorilla Grodd hits them all with this mysterious ray, and they all disappear. So apparently, the League has now all been scattered throughout time in different eras of the Justice League, I guess. And we have now to see how they're eventually going to rally and get back to the present day and defeat the Legion of Doom. I think it's a 5-part series, from what I understand. It's written by Marc Waid and illustrated. For the most part, it seems to be by Travis Moore. Originally, Van Moore was working on it, and I'm a little disappointed to see Moore doing it now, but he's doing a decent job of keeping the feel of the book similar to Moore. So it's not bad, but I understand Moore's going to be back for the finale, so I'm looking forward to that. Marc Waid's storytelling is, I would say, is like a lighter style than what you would have gotten from somebody like Scott Snyder. It's more of a Silver Age feel with a modern flavor attached to it, so it's not corny, but it's still light. It's not cutting edge, but it feels big and exciting, and I love that. It's like kind of like reading a grown-up story about the Super Friends cartoon, and that's not a bad thing. And it's actually a pretty good book, so you guys should check it out if you haven't. And
I did check it out.
You did check it out. What do you think?
Let me see how to put a word. I like it less than the other side of the crossover, which is the Batman Superman book.
Batman, okay.
That Marc Waid, and I think it's in the same Dan Moore doing, because this is book 2, and it focused on how Grodd got his power up. But I just came away feeling vaguely dissatisfied, and I can't really say why.
Think you would more when the whole crossover is finished?
I don't know, and I'm wondering how much of it is some kind of like lingering disappointment from the book I was going to talk about, which is what's the name of the book? The Last Days of Lex Luthor. Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor.
Okay.
Book 3.
Okay.
That was also written by Marc Waid, and I read those 2 back to back, and maybe there's some feed over. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Possible. I just like the big interconnected feeling that the DCU has again. I miss that, and this is giving me a lot of that, and I hope it stays for quite a while, to be honest.
DC All In, I think they've been firing on pretty much all cylinders.
All cylinders.
Even a book like Challengers of the Unknown. So if you haven't been reading DC All In, like Waid mentioned, it very much kind of like channels the Justice League Unlimited series, where you have so many heroes who are no part of the league, but they're also they're all in this big watchtower in the sky. But the Challenge of the Unknown, which is like this, would they be fair to call them like a C-list group? They're kind of like weird analogs, like the Fantastic Four. So they're a quartet, but instead of gang powers, they ended up like basically cheating death. So, but they're very much adventurers, but they're the support staff for the Justice League Watchtower. So they're the ones like keeping things running. And what I like about DC All In is that they're giving different heroes like different roles. So the Beatles are very much like the tech team, like tech support. Ted Cord and Jamie Reyes, I think that's his last name. But even the Challenges of the Unknown book is great, and it really like Waid said, it ties into this whole grand tapestry of DC, the DC universe at this point, which is wonderful. So you're getting signed for different characters throughout the DC.
So I have a quick question for you guys. How long do you think after Marc Waid leaves these books, how long do you think DC is going to try to maintain this cohesiveness?
So, sorry, that's a... Oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, that's a question that I'm, like, in a sense, afraid of the answer, because I've seen what happens when someone come in and they lay out this map. They have this idea, this vision, this intention. And as soon as they leave, it just all falls apart. I've seen that with most recently with the the Krakoa thing. Because
Jonathan Hickman.
that was a beautiful visionary thing, and the moment Hickman was gone, it just fell apart. And I was so scared of that happening, stopped reading the entire Krakoa event completely. I just put up a return like, nope, I know where this is going. I can see the outcome. I'm not going down that road. You're not breaking my heart again. So with All In, I'm scared of that happening, because I'm already seeing something that has me a little concerned. Because, like you said, Waid, when the Justice League disbanded, and then Amanda Waller did her thing. But the truth is, the league didn't just completely disband. They actually put in somebody to replace them, and that was the Titans.
Titans. Yeah,
So
you're
the
right.
Titans, the Titans had become who the league was supposed to be. It was like a passing of the torch, because they were saying, you guys are young and fresh, and maybe you can do this better than we're doing it. So now I'm wondering, well, where does this leave the Titans? Because if the league is back as the premier super team, what happened to them?
I guess
Well, everybody's in
the
the league
Titans
now.
are. Yeah, everybody's in league, so
So
there's still a Titans though, but is
I
everything's
mean, yeah,
folded
like
into the league. Yeah.
narratively, there's still a Titans book,
Yeah.
but everybody, pretty much every single character you can think of from DC bit, they got a Justice League membership card. So
My thing is,
Titans, they've got access to the tower, they've got their own space in the watchtower. So
but like Mike said, I mean, yeah, it's a vision mapped out. You can clearly, this is Mark Waid's vision, and it might linger a while after he leaves, but it's probably mapped out for maybe 5 years or so. But after that, they're gonna revert back to to something attached to movies or something. I don't know. But anyway, Glenn, you had some thoughts?
So to address the question that you leveled, right, in terms of how do we see things playing out, to add a little bit of context before I even give what my answer is, right? We do realize that in either of the big two, we don't have a Stanley. We don't have somebody who is almost like a nexus point for all the ideas and that maintains the continuity. We've come close to that in persons like Ali Ewing and Jed McKay. Those guys are repository of actual information. So they would take all the nonsense that gets flung around whichever universe it is and then try to make things more cohesive. Jonathan Hickman does the same thing as well. So within these three guys, you tend to see that maintaining of continuity and so on, even if they may not be a singular guiding hand that is being a sort of maestro conducting a grand overall vision and direction for the universe. You are seeing that currently in DC because, as I mentioned before, the stability that you're seeing in DC right now comes from Joshua Williamson. He's been pushing very much for DC to kind of maintain some form of cohesiveness narratively overall, right? Even though he may not necessarily have had the greatest influence, he was able to use his, I guess, the relationship that he's built, the working relationship that he's built within DC itself and with the writers there, able to kind of get them on board of the idea of speaking with each other and just having that cohesive vision. Snyder comes along and he has his own vision and he has his group, almost like Avengers or Justice League members that he put together. And that's how we got the whole absolute line going forward. Now, between he and Joshua Williamson working together is why it is that you find that DC as a whole is more stable and that there's the greater connectivity. The continuity, however it exists, is still maintained more or less and prioritized, and that everything just seems to just flow together. That is all going to disappear when those guys leave. When Waid leaves, Joshua Williamson eventually is going to leave, and we don't know what's going on for Snyder. Snyder's been trying to do his own thing for the longest while. But when those guys leave, that leaves with them, unless if DC has a main man or two who inherits whatever it is that them guys are trying to do. Not necessarily in terms of the ideas that they're flinging around, but the heart of maintaining continuity, you know.
Yeah.
So In regards to the book, though, I've been trying to find a book or books in DC that I can more or less find a home at, you know. Before it was Superman, and that was Rebirth Superman, and it was Super Sons. I think those were the books that I would like consistently reading up until Bendis came along, and then I just stopped. Justice League, I was reading Justice League when Snyder was on the big whole bombastic stuff. But more or less, I've been trying to find books. And so, new number ones, I jump onto Unlimited and I read the first issue. And I remember liking it very much. It reminded me of when Hickman was doing Avengers. And so you had the whole Avengers world idea. It kind of reminded me of that, where now it seems like it's a Justice League world. Everybody, all the superheroes are involved, they're more connected, they're more organized, and they are delegating work. So I kind of like that. My thing was how how is how are they going to find threats? Because with the Justice League was already overpowered, in my opinion. Now you having them being disorganized, all the heroes together and giving them direction, and they're all interconnected with each other, they're all in communication with each other. How are villains going to survive? That was my question.
I totally
I've
get
got
it.
a question.
Mm.
So Glenn mentioned Joshua Williamson on Superman, and I gotta say I really enjoyed him on Superman. But here's the thing: there's other stuff he's written before a Superman run that it didn't gel with me at all, right? So
Yeah, I
why do you
never enjoyed his Flash, to be honest.
so why do you think that is? And we mentioned it. We were talking in the
It's
chat
not a
this week
Superman.
about Ram V. His New Gods book it's high concept, it's trippy, but it's I'm enjoying it, right?
Let me
But
not
his
cross you
Batman,
though. Let me not cross you, Gibson, but maybe we should move on to the other books we want to talk about, and we can revisit this in the absolute DC versus Ultimate Marvel conversation that we're gonna have a little later. Because we can
sure.
talk all stuff in there. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about if you want to go, if Glenn wants to go with your books, or Mike has a book. Who wants to go first?
I would like to go first.
Let's hear about talking about Storm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep it concise. So I'm gonna preface by saying that Storm getting her solo book, I was skeptical about it because, truth be told, Storm is not a solo character, or at least people who've taken up Storm and written Storm solos haven't really seen Storm as a solo character, or haven't seen that aspect of her enough to have the books be have any sort of longevity. Because by and large, mutants are just team characters, unless if you're Wolverine. But even then, you know, Wolverine is on everybody's team. So I was kind of skeptical about it until I saw who it was that they brought on to write the book, which was this African dude by the name of Murewa Ayodele. I hope I probably bastardized this man's name. So he comes on, and his pedigree is that he's done two books in the past. The first one I came across was a black and white thing that had a pretty cool concept. Essentially, the main character was this young girl who was the granddaughter of a sky father, an African sky father, and she believed that she could fling lightning, and she could, but we had to get there to a certain point. She was like a foster. She was fostered around the place and all that kind of stuff. So she had her own personal drama. I thought it was pretty cool. The artwork was really grubby. It's like somebody did this in their spare time with their free hand and they did it. But the story was pretty interesting. The second one was a proper production, like full on proper production, edited, colored professionally, and printed. published. I can't remember the name, but it had to do with a bunch of African superheroes, and it was pretty cool. Right. So when I saw that, and I was following him on Instagram, so when I saw it was he that was jumping on with the Storm book, I'm like, okay, I will give it a shot. This is very important. It's important because, and it comes out in his writing, this guy is an outsider to the Marvel Club. So whatever discussions and ideas that flows around and permeates within Marvel and infect most of the writers there, it's not happening with this guy. And you can see it in his writing. He handles Storm in a way that is very respectful of the character, of her character as we know it. But being an African, having that culture, writing Storm, the African culture comes out through Storm as well in a very natural and organic way. So she is still the Storm that we recognize. She does have a bit more African flavor to her. And it's not overpowering at all. It's not overpowering at all. It is very, it's very tasteful and respectful. Those are the two prominent words that come to mind when I think about that. Yes, about who?
Regal. Regal as one of those words. Because she
Regal?
does
Oh,
regal.
regal.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, well, yes, she is regal, but not with the flavor that she had when she was with Black Panther. This regal, it has that whiff of modern feminism, that empowered female thing that's been going on for the past couple of years. It has hints of that, right? And you see it like in the beginning, the early books, first two books and so on. Storm comes out and she is, I am woman, I am power, I am snap fingers, slay queen. You check me. She comes in with that. But very quickly we get past that. And then it starts settling in because Storm has her own issues that she's dealing with. The Storm book now is interesting because there's two stories taking place, two planes of existence, two levels of stories taking place within the Storm book. Because Storm is going through her things. She's coming out of Krakoa and she's establishing a solo space. She hasn't teamed up with any of the X people. She is with the Avengers, and she's just rocking in her own space, right? But something is happening to her. Something metaphysical as well as physical is happening to her. She's going through changes. There's forces, fundamental forces in the universe that is using or interfering with Storm. And you can see the effects on her as she's going through personal and not so personal issues. There's mutant issues that she is being a spokesperson for, and then there's individual personal issues that she's trying to resolve. Her relationship with the X-Men, herself, her identity, her role moving forward, and her relationship with like Charles Xavier and stuff like that, and even Doctor Doom and so on. But then there's the cosmic side of things, which I didn't even fathom would be in a Storm book, right? And the writer, he takes a certain level of freedom with the story that he's telling, but he's able to do it because he's doing it in that way where in like past cosmic stories, past Marvel stories and so on, there would be gaps in our understanding of the universe and how it works or these people's lives, where a creative writer could come in and tell a story that fits within that gap and it makes sense, but it doesn't affect anything else, anything that we understand so far. And if it's done right, it actually reinforces what is already established and adds more nuance to it. And that is what he's doing. He brings into play the Living Tribunal, Eternity, and Oblivion. And they have a conversation and they have an interaction that I've never seen before. yes, I've seen Galactus and Eternity meet. And I think one of the most epic moments in Marvel Cosmic, as far as I'm concerned, was where Galen is revealed. He reveals himself to Eternity and shakes his hand as Galen, as a being of light, not in the Galactus regalia. And I thought that's pretty awesome. This reminds me of that, where you get to see these two brothers and their nature, how their nature plays off of each other. And that was like really dope. There's always Oblivion. He's the most eternal of all. But then eternity comes and is born, which creates a universe that then takes away, in order for him to continue existing, he takes away from Oblivion, right? And we have our own perceptions of infinity and the unending, but on those levels, that has a whole different meaning. It's dealt with in a whole different context. And so eternity keeps expanding because eternity is life, it's matter, it's all of existence. But its expansion comes at the expense of Oblivion. And Oblivion made decisions, and now he is rethinking those decisions. And the Living Tribunal, of course, has to mediate between them. And somewhere in the midst of all this cosmic rigmarole and drama that's going on, Storm is inadvertently caught in the middle of that. And how she gets caught in the middle of that, I think is just. And so I'm unexpectedly caught up in a book that I didn't really have much hopes of actually being good, but now I wish that it's ongoing. I don't know if it will happen, but yeah, it's really, really good.
Well, I'm not a Storm guy, and I would have gone on record as saying before that I can't see Storm functioning outside of a team. But based on what you've seen and you talk about all the cosmic aspect to this book and everything is really interesting to me, and I keep promising to pick it up to see what is going on. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
But I
Do
will
you
say
think
this though, in closing, I will say this though. This increase in Storm's profile is great for a minute, but I wouldn't want Storm to remain as such. Because to me, Storm is an integral part, a fundamental element in what makes the X-Men. And all of that to me is just unnecessary.
I would disagree. I think that Marvel has for a long time struggled to find or define their Trinity and to find their equivalent of Wonder Woman. And previously, they attempted to elevate, I would say prematurely, Carol Danvers to be, to primacy, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I think. And since, well, she's still chairman or current leader of the Avengers, but it feels like Carol has mellowed a lot as a character. Storm, though, this feels, at least to me, more organic, but I'm a bit biased because if I had to pick one female Marvel character to be part of Marvel's Trinity, Storm would be my pick.
Not
Yeah.
Mary Jane Watson.
Boy, get there. Exit chat. Just disconnect. Turn off the internet, everything.
Mark,
You here talking nonsense.
Mark, I'm sorry, bro, but I have to disagree with you here. The whole idea of a big three that is a DC thing, that has never been a Marvel thing. Marvel don't need a big three. The way in which Marvel is organized, it's not possible to have a big three. Because
But
they
they
have
tried though.
no, they tried because at every point in time, these people would do stupid things. Like look at DC, right? Trying to run after the MCU, and in their rush made something that would have been epic fail because they didn't want to get lost behind. That was a stupid decision, right?
Sure.
So at every
Sure.
point in time, they have brain farts, but it doesn't mean that the thing is not correct. Marvel never operates the way DC does, and DC doesn't operate the way Marvel does. And what is required from them is vastly different, right? They're both superheroes, producers of superhero stories, but what it is that we want from them, it differs, right? Um, these Marvel cannot have a Wonder Woman because Marvel have Wonder Women. There's a whole bunch of them. You check me. There's Sue Storm, right? There's Carol Danvers.
Boo.
There's
Scarlet Witch.
there's what the hell? Scarlet what? Oh no, bro. Oh no. No,
She
no, no.
totally has.
You don't rate Wanda?
No, because Wanda is a broken character, right?
Oh no, she's not
And
broken anymore, man.
no, she's not broken anymore because of internal initiative. But Wanda is one of those characters that need to be broken. You need characters to represent different aspects of how we live. And that's the beauty of Marvel to me. You check me? We don't need, if a character has flaws, then that's great. Let them have their flaws. Wanda's flaw was that she was mentally unstable, uber powerful, mentally unstable, with a strong relationship with her brother, but a tenuous one with her father, right? And never having the potential to be really great, but there are hiccups and broken pieces within her life that keeps her from ever fully reaching that greatness. Hers is a tragedy, and there's nothing wrong with that. They lost sight of that, as they lost sight with a whole lot of other things, and they feel like, hey, you know what? We need to make her perfect. But that's a whole other discussion. We ain't getting into that.
I don't think Wanda is perfect, and I like therapy Wanda. That's what I call her. She got a good therapist on board and got her life together, and she's just living her own corner, and that's great.
But that wasn't natural, though. It wasn't like a natural arc for her. That was all based on real world politics. That was not a natural arc for her character. There's nowhere in Wanda's history we can point to and say, okay, here, this is Wanda on a road to recovery. Before this road to recovery that she was on, which was tremendously short, Wanda was on an apology tour. The same way Jean spent all her publishing life after she became the Phoenix as one big apology tour. Every time Jean reappears, it's like, oh, I'm sorry for killing all these people. God damn it, man. Come on. It was an accident. You never did it on purpose, right? And you, Scarlet Witch, you're crazy. You have mental issues. You need real, actual help. Granted, a
So
psychic
you're a Jean apologist, is what you're saying?
a Jean apologist? No, I'm not a Jean apologist. When I read it, okay, so when I read The Dark Phoenix, right, I read it as just part of reading all of the X-Men and so on. Later on, when I started to hear the discourse concerning Jean, I was really confused because what people were saying didn't line up with what it is that I read. I had to ask myself, did we read the same thing? She kicked up the X-Men, fly out into space, got exhausted, recharged by consuming a sun. The sun detonated. She came back. Well, it detonated after she left. So she didn't even see the detonation. And she went back and put more blows on the X-Men, right? They just happened to show the after effects of the repercussion of what she did. People dead.
No, clear
Now,
something for me, Glenn. I know there've been retcons and whatnot over the years, but the Jean that was in Dark Phoenix Saga, that wasn't the real Jean, right? The real Jean was trapped in a cocoon at the bottom of Jamaica Bay, and that was a Dark Phoenix manifestation of Jean that was with the X-Men throughout the whole Dark Phoenix Saga, if I recall correctly. So I mean, she's definitely not to blame then.
Wasn't that a sort of
so what happened is that Jean did all of that, and it was Jean. And she got her just desserts in the end. They put her on trial, she was found guilty, and then she
But I remember there was a whole
basically
thing
committed
with
suicide.
with the Avengers finding the cocoon in the ocean. And it was the real Jean.
We get into that real quick.
Okay.
Okay, Jean dies, and that's the end of Jean's story. The books sell like gangbusters. And then in comes what's his name at the time? The head honcho at the time. And he comes in and he's like, yo, we need more Jean. But she's dead. Okay, find
Yeah,
a
yeah,
way
you're
to
right.
make it
Right
work
on.
because
Make it bring
she's
it back.
popular now. She's
Mm.
popular now. So now they had to come up with this whole thing about she being in a cocoon at the bottom and so on as a way to erase also any sins that Jean, quote unquote, had committed by being the Dark Phoenix and whatnot, right? But at the same time, though, she shouldn't be apologizing for that. She was caught in cosmic fury. She was under the sway of the Phoenix itself. She wasn't even rational. She wasn't even of sound mind. So she don't need to apologize. But anyway, they had her apologize the first time. And every other goddamn time that she came out, like, can't we move past this? It's like Henry Pym can't get past slapping the woman. You check me, it's
You know,
like, geez, Louise,
the
man.
funny story about that is that they said when they wrote that story, it was supposed to be like an accidental push. But who was it drawing it? Was Buscema? I think it was Buscema, but his art style is so dynamic that he just went overboard and made it into a whole slap. And then that
Oh,
snowballed into a whole thing, apparently. So that's how that goes. But we getting kind of off track and
yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So let's move on. If you ever do that another time, let's move on to the next book. Who wants to get Michael or Mark?
I can go because
Yeah.
my selection is fairly short. So I've been into, in a weird way, I've been reading two books kind of in a simultaneous fashion between Namor and the all new Aquaman. They're almost mirroring each other, but they're doing different things because with the Aquaman, he is basically back. He's king again. He has his wife, he has his kids, he's doing good, all of that. And now, in a ironic twist of fate because of Amanda Waller, he has his wife's powers. So he is quite literally king of the ocean because he controls all life in the sea. He controls the sea itself. The man is living his best life. And then shenanigans happens. He finds himself shunted through a apocalypse portal, ends up on another world, and now he has to start dealing with all kinds of divine level shenanigans and new gods and this and kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, do your thing, Arthur. And at the same time, you have Namor, who is in a weird way on his apology run because of the events that happened with him when he attempted, or well, you had a persona that was implanted in his head by Charles Xavier sometime during World War II that grew out of control and decided it was going to enact some crazy ass plan to turn basically as many humans as possible into ocean breathers using Namor's body to do it the entire time. So now Namor is on his weird apology tour, but he's also regaining his throne, regaining his, dominion and stuff. And in a sense, to me, kind of regaining his self-respect that he has lost a long time ago because they have turned him into this sniveling guppy. So watching that happen and for him and Arthur in two different ways, but in a sense, two very similar men, it's kind of cool.
Okay, I had no idea that was going on in Aquaman. I was reading it more for a bit, but that was the miniseries when he was in prison and he got out. But I was reading that for a bit, but I dropped off. But the Aquaman sounds pretty cool. I did not know he was on another dimension. I did not know he had mirror's powers. I didn't know any of that. So, yeah, I might try that out myself too. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's my turn. So yeah, but no, the like Mike is saying, the Aquaman book is actually pretty cool, and I would like him to keep Mirror's powers personally, because that just makes sense to me. Anyway, my book is the Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor, book 3, the series finale.
Boo.
Yeah, boo.
Just
Yeah,
because of the
boo.
ending. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, boo. Sorry, what was that?
Is Luthor dying of cancer? Because that's the only way I can see the last days of Luthor being
Yeah.
relevant. Because remember, nobody can cure cancer.
You'll find out now. Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for those listening who haven't read it. But yeah, Luthor is dying, and he turns to Superman for help. And everybody thinks that Superman is crazy because Luthor is, terrible, a villain, unrepentant, arrogant, all that kind of stuff. But Superman, actually does like literally move heaven and earth to kind of save Lex Luthor. He takes him to Kandor. He takes him to I think they go to Paradise Island. They go to the Legion in the future in the 31st century, all over the place to try and save Lex Luthor, right? So I was really enjoying this series, and this is one of DC's Black Label series. I was really enjoying it because of the characterization. Mark Waid did a very cool thing in kind of like combining various incarnations of these two characters into this book. So if you were a fan of Smallville, the show, where Lex and Clark were friends, like, back in the day, something similar here. Lex is, I think, this is a very complete, realized characterization of Lex, but the dynamic between them, because in this book, in this series, Superman felt guilty for not revealing his secret of being an alien to Lex when they were back in Smallville, because he knew that Lex was literally trying to find life outside of Earth because he felt so isolated. So they're at varying levels, but instead of kind of like bonding and forming a relationship over this commonality, Clark keeps his secret. Lex ends up having an experiment go awry, and he ends up being the guy he is. This entire series was delayed something like 2 years. I think book 1 came out like 2 years ago, and then nothing.
Yeah, a very long delay.
And I was enjoying this entire thing up until the last fifth of the book. The ending of the book for me didn't stick the landing, and I've been a fan of Mark Waid since the days he was writing Flash with Wally West, Kingdom Come, and some other stuff he's done. His current Superman Batman book, I think, is great as well. But ending here was unsatisfying for me. And again, I'm not going to spoil it, but it comes down to this. I think I said it in the chat. The characterization of Superman, where Superman doesn't kill when in continuity, also continuity, that has been shown not to be the case. So while everybody's freaking out in the Man of Steel movie with Zack Snyder and Superman killing Zod, the comic books established that like decades ago, right? I think I said this in the chat. Like, Superman deciding not to kill is rubbish because that absolutism of this decision stems from, one, a position of power, and the fact that he's a fictional character. Like, the ending of the book pissed me off, and it kind of soured me on the entirety of book 3 for sure. I don't know how you feel. If you have read Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor, book 3, feel free to let us know, and maybe post this to YouTube and wherever else we're going to post it. But yeah, do you feel the same way? Do you think it was a great ending? Are you equally dissatisfied? Do you really not care? Let us know.
Here's my thing about my first problem with this book is there are millions, I assume, of people on Earth with cancer. They are dying with different diseases every day. Why is Superman going so out of his way to help his greatest enemy? Why are you not doing this for your little kid in a hospital room with a bald head, suffering with leukemia? You're really going above and beyond. Guilt, really, Superman should be above that kind of thing. It's not his fault.
The entire book, their entire dynamic, hinges on this guilt, this unresolved guilt, where Clark feels that if he had really, because he was Lex's only friend in Smallville, but if he had confided in Lex, he believes that the entire trajectory of Lex Luthor's life would have been different. And again, that's arrogant.
There's an alien over here. I was right.
Like, I think that's arrogance. So
I still think it's a bit much. The premise is a bit off for me. You got kind of shut on my brain to accept that Superman would do all this just because.
Because if you, it's all tied together. if you are one of those people, Superman fans, writers, whatever, who believe that no matter what, Superman does not kill and will do anything to find the alternative that will work, then this entire premise works. If you are like me and you realize that historically, through Superman's publication history, Superman will kill if he realizes that this is the solution. And my preference for Superman is like that, right? I like him being a Boy Scout. I like him being the person, voted most likely to save the world, right? But there are points where Superman is like, you pushing me into my comfort zone, and I'm going to make you hurt for it. You see that Superman versus Doomsday in the original Death of Superman, in the Superman Hunter and Prey book, in pretty much any major encounter with Darkseid. So I don't think Superman works as like a Punisher, where he's going around killing willy-nilly. I do like Superman trying to find the best possible solution, but this book in particular is unsatisfactory because if you take the guilt element away, the rest of it falls apart. He wouldn't be motivated to save, to go to the lengths he does ultimately at the end of this series if he wasn't burdened by this guilt. And this isn't I don't want to call this a spoiler for the end of the book, but Superman does lose his powers for a bit in its final book. It grinds my gears with any writer who decides Alien takes away superpowers, he becomes human. That grinds my gears. I can't.
Yeah, again, it's like with absolute power. It's like with absolute power. A lot of these things that stole as powers were basic biology, not powers. So I was like, kind of where I get you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen that. I'm a big Superman fan. I've seen that repeated throughout like my awareness of Superman publication history. The Superman Wedding album started with him not having powers at the end of what was it? The 1 year later series that came at the end of where Superman was powerless for a year. And people are just assuming that all right, Superman not being super makes him a man. Rubbish. Sorry.
Yeah.
Two major points here, right? The first one, not killing to me is very important. I don't think Superman should ever kill. I don't mind seeing Superman kill, but I don't need or really want Superman to kill. Because Superman represents something, even though I'm not like a Superman fan per se. I respect Superman. I do like Superman. And I understand that Superman represents certain ideals, right? And it's necessary for him to embody those ideals, those morals, those values, because he's Superman, right? He is what everybody else should aspire to, and we need that. We need that. We need heroes. And in the comics is the same thing. The heroes themselves need heroes. Everybody needs a hero. Superman is the best of us, right? Even with his flaws, there are virtues that he embodied, and we need that. I can see Batman killing. I don't have a problem with Batman killing. Batman, as a matter of fact, needs to kill, but I won't get into that.
He needs to kill the Joker. Sorry, carry on.
He needs to kill. Yeah, I don't think Batman has any characters, any villains that really need to be a permanent fixture. I think once you reach a certain level of annoyance or danger, you just need to be removed. Period. Right? But anyway, so that's the first thing. The second thing is this. Perch said something, and I'm just going to paraphrase because I can't remember word for word. But essentially, what he's saying is this: superhero comics need to stay within the realm of absurdity. Because anytime you come out of the realm of absurdity, then they don't make any sense at all. And then your problems and your issues don't make sense, which is why you always end up with situations where the heroes lose their powers, which is a fundamentally stupid thing, because what makes the heroes is their powers, right? That is what set them on that journey. They may have characteristics about them that make them human, or a man or a woman, or what makes them super is their powers. And we want to see them being super, and we want to see them being cool, right? And it is what differentiates them from each other. So when you start to get into that realm of, that level of sense, then the heroes stop making sense, like global warming, diseases, war, famine, that kind of stuff. In a world where people can fight and create planets, how are we still having problems? Earlier on, I said, I don't know how the villains are going to survive with an organized world of Justice League. Like, how? Again, how? So,
But what you need to do
I
there
think
is create
this.
like Grant Morrison level threats. If you read JLA back in the day, the League was badass. It was unstoppable the same way, but you had to bring cosmic threats and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that's what Waid is gonna do. Yeah, they have to fight
And
heaven.
your heroes need villains that can test them, push them to their limits, run their paces, right? Lex as a villain, man, he makes sense for a very particular type of storytelling, right? But as an all-around villain, I don't see Lex being that, right? Doomsday as well is a particular type of villain. And I guess that is why they have what we call a rogues gallery, because each of those villains test the heroes in different ways, right? At the end of it, the heroes are supposed to grow. But the thing about superhero stories, as they're being told, the way in which they're being published, is that you can't actually have like real growth. Well, actually, no, you can have real growth with these characters. But the thing is, there is no end, there's no ultimate end to their stories. So then there's only so much, right? And with these characters existing for so long, you're rinsing a lot of the plot lines and stuff like that. But I don't think that in and of itself is a problem, because as long as a story is entertaining, we don't care if the plot is a rehash plot, as long as it's interesting.
I wanted to ask him here. I forgot the thought, but with something you said that's just triggered it again. The Storm book. I think one of the reasons I like the Storm book, and it ties into what you just said, I think, is for me, the Storm book feels additive rather than fan fiction. And by fan fiction, I mean a writer or a storyteller grew up reading this particular character. They had stories that pop into their head at that point, and now they're adults and they're telling those stories. Versus what I think this Storm book is doing, and I'm not going to butcher the guy's name, but I feel like he's trying to build her out, to build out her character, her rogues gallery, and add to the character rather than, to use another term, rehashing.
Well, clearly he understands Storm, because Storm feels and sounds like Storm. And what's going on for her, as what you said, is additive. It feels like a natural progression. Like this is something that Storm would be going through. And yeah, they're adding things towards Storm, like Storm coming from a line of sorcerers, that she has dormant magic within her veins. And he does that in a way, right? That I also find that to be pretty interesting. Not to belabor the point, but he does it in such a way where he puts it there. It's not something that Storm is actively going to pursue, but it is something that is said so that, if somebody wants to run with that at some point later on, then yeah. But the grand cosmic level Storm, that's not for now. That's not for now. That's for much, much later. Old woman Storm, yes. Right? During that Sins of Sinister line where she pulled lightning out of space, like in the depths of space, and clap, a giant megazord, what's her name? Emma Frost, big diamond Gundam-looking Emma Frost and clap her with lightning in the depths of space. I mean, like, yes, I can really mess with that.
Okay. I have more thoughts on what Superman should be and if he should kill or not, but we do need to move on. And we wanted to talk about how we're enjoying
Make your
the
point.
nah,
Make your
what,
point.
okay,
You're the
all right. What I
Superman
was
guy. Make your point.
what I was gonna say is I agree with you. Superman should never be. He's supposed to be a symbol of hope and what to aspire to. Always find a better way to do things, and he should never, as someone said before, a writer should never put Superman in a situation where he has to kill. That being said, there have been times, like Mark said, in history where he has killed, and those stories have been pretty much universally demonized at this point. But I find what happened in this book is that he hasn't killed in it directly, but the choice that he makes at the end of the book, this is what I have a fundamental problem with. The choice that he's made at the end of the book has put billions of lives at risk. And him doing this on behalf of Lex Luthor makes
Fucking
no
arrogant.
sense. It makes no sense to me. If you look at it holistically, it is foolishness. I'm like, this it read good and what is all noble and stuff. Is it noble? You don't want to sacrifice these, as you said, these arrogant principles you have. You've made this horrendous decision, in my opinion. And as you said, the way didn't stick the landing, the whole thing fell apart for me at that. I stooped and tossed the tablet across the bed. And I was like, I wasted, because we had to wait, 2 years for number 2 and number 3 to come out. I felt like I wasted all that time to have it pan out like that. Yeah, that's what I had to say. So the book was good up until the end. And I don't know what to deal with that.
But it was actually a thing, crazily, earlier in the week where me and Glenn was actually hashing out an issue that very similar to this, where we were asking, like, where I was asking, what is this thing I'm seeing, or this trend where in order to be like some quintessential hero, in order to uphold these standards and uphold what it means to be a true hero and stuff, why is it that you have to go out of your way to save the bad guy or to save the villain? Like, how does that count as heroism? You putting somebody else's life in danger or your life in danger to protect the guy who is basically trying to kill you or harm a bunch of other people, just to say, oh, all life is precious and I must protect, everybody, and even the worst guy deserves a second chance. Like, is that really what a hero is?
Well, it's pretty much ingrained in us at that point. That's what it is, because even in Batman Begins, when Batman tells Ra's al Ghul, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. That makes sense. But it's still, whenever I hear it, it rubs me the wrong way for some reason. I guess it's programmed in us know that heroes are supposed to do everything they can to save everybody. But that makes sense. I don't see what's the point of going out of your way to save, like, the current Hush storyline in Batman. Not getting off track too much, but the Joker has been mutilated and tortured and he bring to death by Hush. And Batman is pulling the Joker out of prison and is taking him to Leslie Tompkins hospital and is running from the police, doing everything he can to save the Joker's life. And I'm like, this doesn't, they got people out in the street getting mugged and murdered and kidnapped. You don't have anything better to do? It doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is.
Here's the thing, right? Batman is willing to go out of his way to do all of this for Joker. Joker, the man who has arguably caused him more personal pain than anybody else, but he was ready and willing to stab Riddler in the face for killing a child just to set off a series of events to try to make Joker laugh. He was going to kill Riddler, and Joker had to stop him from crossing that line. Yet he's going out of his way to save Joker life.
Whoa, that book sounds like some real garbage.
Yeah, you don't want to read Hush. Is nothing compared to the original, and in my opinion, Jeff Loeb has always been. Jeff Loeb has written what, 2 good stories, maybe Superman for All Seasons and Cameron Wells, but Hush and Long Halloween and stuff. But his current work, this book is no good, and Jim Lee's art is kind of falling off. But let's move on though. What we're going to talk about mainly, although we've been here for a while, we're going to discuss which books we like and which universe we like, out of the Ultimate Universe and the Absolute Universe. What I like about these books is like, unlike the original Ultimate Universe, both of these books have spun out of events that happened in the mainline DC and Marvel. The Ultimate U started when the evil Reed Richards from the original Ultimate U escapes
The
the 616 Marvel Universe and goes and tampers with a new timeline and causes all the heroes not to get their powers and cause it to be a darker world. And the Absolute Universe spins out of the main DC universe where Darkseid is killed, I mean, dies, I guess, and his essence reshapes one of the worlds in the multiverse, Earth Alpha, into a darker world where the heroes basically have to struggle a lot more than the main DCU current counterparts. So they're all fresh takes on these new characters. Some are better than others, but for the most part, they've all been good. I find the Absolute Universe has been stronger than the Ultimate U. We have books like, well, my favorite so far, it was Absolute Wonder Woman, but it's currently now Absolute Martian Manhunter, which is such a weird, trippy book where it's by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez. So Rodriguez art is this kind of 60s psychedelic type of trippy art. And the Martian Manhunter is like a consciousness lost inside John Jones. This was a detective, his FBI agent lost in his mind. I don't know if it's because he had an accident, he doesn't remember who he is, or if it's a passenger riding along in his brain. But the whole book is a mind trip and it's beautiful to look at. Absolute Wonder Woman though is amazing too. Is Diana, she's more in touch with her magical side. In this book, she's the daughter of, well, she's the adopted daughter of Cersei, so she knows magic and it's all spellcraft and it's still kind of action. To me, this is the book. Diana's closer, is the closest to her mainline incarnation than any of the other characters. Batman is pretty good too. He doesn't have his money. Then we have Absolute Superman, which to me is my least favorite so far. It feels very new 52-ish. Um, and angsty, and I just don't like it. Absolute Flash is all right, but I don't know where it's going yet. And yeah, but for me, they're all readable. Oh, there's Absolute Green Lantern as well, which
hmm
has this weird. I think Glenn corrected me. Man was style art. It looks very unfinished and amateurish. I don't like it. Um, but that's kind of interesting at first, but I don't know where that's going either. In the ultimate side, now those books are a little more hit and miss. Ultimate Spider-Man is cool. It started cool, but it's taking its time. It's a slow burn, and I'm kind of getting a little bored. I dropped off Ultimate Black Panther pretty
They're
soon.
all slow burns.
Yeah, Ultimate Black Panther just feels more like the regular Black Panther, to be honest, and I got bored. What else is there? Remind me. Oh, Ultimate
Yeah.
X-Men by Peach Momoko.
Mm.
That book is not for me, so I have zero interest in that. The
And
Ultimates,
yeah,
I enjoy that. I'm enjoying the
Ultimate Wolf.
Ultimates. Ultimate Wolverine, yeah, Ultimate Wolverine. Yeah, I like Wolverine. I read Wolverine doing anything, so that's kind of cool. But this whole Wolverine is remembers memories again thing, we've seen it before. Ultimates, the main book. That's where all the action is happening. That's where the storyline is happening in the background. The maker has been sent, has been lost all the time for the last 6 months or something. He's eventually coming back, and the heroes have to prepare for his return. So that's simmering, and then but yeah, you guys go ahead. That's those are the books I think I want to talk about with the crossovers that are going to happen. But you guys can weigh in on what you think.
So, by and large, we share similar sentiment in regards to the absolute universe. If I have to pick between either of the two, I would give it to the absolute universe. They clearly it's just action. The characters ring true where they are fundamentally, and then in terms of like whatever new that they're bringing to the table, by and large, they've also knocked that out of the park. Not all of the characters hit for me. Like I really wanted Superman to be like the greatest. The design alone was what really captivated me, and the Batman one was just amazing. And I really wanted the Superman to be as amazing as that. The Batman still remains my number one. I love the all of the books so far. I have really enjoyed them. My top three is still the first three, although the Martian Manhunter is It came out of left field in terms of like the production and how it's telling the story and so on. I look forward to each one because the one has a completely different take in how it is that they're telling their story. Each one of those books cannot be seen as a copy of the other. They're very individualistic, and I appreciate that, and I absolutely love that. I am really happy for the existence of these books because it's a real jumping on point for me. Like I said, I've been looking for DC books to get into, and so far the Absolute line has been it for me because it's fulfilling the role of the Ultimates when they first came out originally as a jumping on point for persons who didn't want the backlog of mainline continuity. So I appreciate that. I'm on for that. The Martian Manhunter, the psychedelic aspect of it, visuals, it was just stunning, and it balances off because it's not all the way psychedelic. He has that solid art. You said 1960s aesthetic to it. There's that. And then again, the other aspect of the 1960s aesthetic, which is the psychedelic, trippy aspect of it, that comes in as well. And how they balance them off in the panels is really great. It's a beautiful book to look at. So I like that. I also appreciate the Wonder Woman book, how she's coming into her own. I mean, like it's pure Obia Bass, right? It's the witchcraft aspect of it. They're not shying away from it, and they're finding a plausible, workable, a practical way, if practical is even a word to use for something as supernatural as witchcraft. But you get what I'm saying. They find a way to make it work. And again, I appreciate that. And Batman consistently just makes me say, what the hell? It's just bonkers. Yeah. I wish I could gush the same way for the Ultimates universe because I am a real fan of Jonathan Hickman and his designs. I'm a fan of the maker, and all of that kind of stuff. But I isn't anything to gush about. And I think that's largely due to the fact that I know by now that Hickman and his plans are all third act. That's where all the action is. That's where all the plot points get tied together. That's where everything else, which is slow, tedious world building and character development, it all comes to a head in the third act. So whenever I pick up a Hickman project or a Hickman organized project, I don't allow myself to just get into the hype. I kind of pace myself. I know it's going to be a slog. It's going to be boring. He's not a, you know, he's not he's almost like a trades guy. He's not a floppy guy kind of vibes, right? So I know in the end it's gonna pay off. So I just need to have patience and just go with it. Peach Momoko is in her own element. Um, Her X-Men is not going to be for most people, but I see her and what she brings to the table as a necessary thing because it stands out first and foremost, and it's necessary if you're looking at it from like a big ideas kind of thing where you're looking at what it is that you're making, how you're getting the pieces together, how the elements are going to work. Hers is the wacky, like unpredictable outlier kind of book that exists within its own space with no apparent connectivity to anything else that's going on, but it is still a part of the world. I can also see from a marketing standpoint and drawing in other types of audiences, Peach Momoko is very big on her own. She's very big and she has a massive fan base. Her books in them sell, right? That is a way in which they could get another own set of people in. It's another way to bring eyes of another market entirely, the Eastern market, over, and even the Western market that's into manga and stuff. That is one way. But that's also a very limited way of looking at it as well. Because again, if you're looking at a mix of flavor of things, Peach does that. I know I'm kind of hard selling Peach there, but I think it's necessary for me to say this because her book has been getting a lot of flack because it's being taken up by X-Men fans, like classic X-Men fans and persons who are familiar with the Western style of storytelling. And so this is just not it for them. And I completely understand that. And I ain't gonna tell anybody just go pick up Peach Momoko's books in them and read them because if you're coming from Western comics directly into that, it's not going to fly for you. But I can tell you, as somebody who reads not just Western but Eastern comics, she's doing a absolutely amazing job on that book. No lie. She's hitting everything that needs to be hit, she's hitting it. And the way she's pacing her story, that is how um, Eastern stories, like top tier Eastern stories, are told. So she's actually doing a bang up job on that book. It's just that we are not going to appreciate it because that's not our whole culture. Check. So,
I
and
get
my
to
book, out of all of that, the Absolute Spider-Man is probably my number one, followed by Peach Momoko and then Black Panther.
take your word on the Peach Momoko stuff. Not gonna read it, but I appreciate what you have to say about it.
So for me, my favorite LB2 is definitely the Absolute line of books. The pacing of the Ultimate Universe. I remember reading the original Ultimate Universe that Bendis started with Ultimate Spider-Man, and I really enjoyed that. Like Glenn said, both versions of the Ultimate Universe were ideal jump-on points for people who want to get into comics, right? And it's very accessible, very fun, digestible, that kind of stuff. This book, again, I'll give Glenn credit here. Hickman is very much a slow burn. Ultimate Spider-Man is probably my best bet. Sorry, my favorite book. Large because Mary Jane Watson remains trash. But I like the dynamic that is building with Peter's children. They're both very different.
If you don't want to be mother of those children, that's
Nah,
not good.
she can't cook, bro.
Yeah.
And she just
I am pro Richard Parker, right? That kid, oh my gosh. I see the potential.
and they're kind of like what's a good term? Subcontracting some of the 616 characteristics to Richard, but in a way that kind of makes him his own person. So Peter is happily married to Trash, but now his son is starting to build a relationship. I don't want to say if it's platonic or like anything else, but he he's building a relationship with Black Cat. So that's fun, and to see he's running around in this high tech version of Venom. So the black suit. That is also interesting to see. I'm looking forward to that. But
So what are the odds?
generally,
What are the odds of Richard going bad?
I don't know, and I don't want to. Much like with Super Sons, I like Richard as he is now. He's a kid having fun driving his dad's car, or in this case, his dad's super suit. So I don't want to look forward too much or too darkly. My number one absolute universe book remains Wonder Woman, Absolute Wonder Woman, because it gives me my ideal Diana. I think that in there've been a lot of efforts both in the cinematic universe and to some extent in the comics to lean into this Wonder Woman ambassador of peace bullshit. Wonder Woman is a warrior for me, and I think she works best as a warrior who likes the challenge of fighting, but knows or is very aware of the consequences of battle. Where she's very much kind of like a personification of a warrior's code. That's my ideal Wonder Woman for me. I don't like her being this semi pacifist, or let me not draw a sword, let me just twirl my whip nonsense. Nah, that is rubbish. But in Ultimate, in Absolute Wonder Woman, she is a warrior, but she's still very much an empathic warrior. Like I think Glenn mentioned this. It brings out kind of core attribute of Wonder Woman across incarnations, where she's very empathic, where she will make friends as much and as often as she can. So in absolute Wonder Woman, she's making friends with all of these mythical creatures that would be considered dangerous. And her entire childhood is spent running around with like various magical creatures and befriending like all sorts of weird creatures and stuff. I think that's cool and that's adorable. But when the rubber hits the road, she will kick ass, and she will do so in a way that isn't about extending the fight. She wants to end the fight as soon as she can because she understands the danger of a fight running too long. So she's not going to play her food. She's going to pull all the stops. I like the fact she has a big ass buster sword. That is cool. I like the fact that she is a very competent magic user. So that adds different a distinctive element to Absolute Wonder Woman versus her more main prime Earth version. I think it's cool. And it's my favorite book. Absolute Batman is overdone in all pretty much every single possible way, which is amusing in its absurdity. The Absolute Man book is a disappointment because it feels like they made him such this wimpy emo. Ugh. And Lois Lane, what they've done consistently in Absolute Superman is continue to make Lois Lane annoying. Yeah, that's consistent.
I dislike Lois the way you dislike Mary Jane.
Mer-
I do find her mainline DC portrayal now is not as grating as it has been in the past, but the absolute version, nah, I hate her.
The current mainline Lois, where she actually has powers, is my favorite take on Lois Lane across whatever incarnation. Because I think it really, and I'm off topic here, but it gave her an opportunity to literally walk in Superman's shoes, which kind of like for me toned down her annoying aspects. But ultimately, Lois Lane annoying, so that's consistent.
I
And not
find
good.
I find that a large part of the issue that we tend to have, or well, I personally tend to have, I can only speak for myself, is that I find that they don't allow strong women to be feminine. And that takes away for me from the characters because there's something I ain't gonna claim to be like a professional within that sphere, right? But I mean, I've lived on Earth long enough, and I was raised by women, so I have an understanding of what a strong woman looks like. And strong women come in different flavors, yes, but there's the commonality is that all these strong women are feminine. Till we run into what we call a manjan or tom that just have no femininity in her whatsoever. She roll like a man. And then it comes out authentically because it's like she really doesn't know what it is. The tomboy character, she really doesn't know what it is to be like female. Her entire psychology is that of a guy. So if it is that you are going to have a strong woman to represent, allow her to be feminine, and then you will get to see that strength in a sensible way. So, Storm is a very good example of a strong woman that is feminine. Sue Storm is another very good example of that as well. And
Big
um,
Bada.
yes, right?
I love me
Big
some.
Bada.
I love Big
And
Brother.
even if I don't know Jack about Big Bada, right? But I'm reading New Gods. And just that moment where she interacts with her husband when he thought that he could sneak away, that one page spoke volumes to me about her character and how the writer sees her and intends to portray her, which is exactly what it is that I want to see. in strong women. She's
You need to
sexy.
check out Birds of Prey.
Break the prayer.
Prey. Big Barda, Cassandra Cain, Barbara Gordon, Diana, what's the bird woman? Crap, I'm tired. Black Canary, and her sister Sin. But the characterization of Big Barda in there, I love it, and for me, it is one of the most underrated DC books in the whole DC All-In turn, for real.
I know we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but just so I don't lose the point, jumping back to Ultimate Spider-Man, there is a moment in the Spider-Man book that I found to be very humorous, and I really appreciated it. Right, it's a bit of spoilers, but come on. So Peter Parker gets a suit, and they find out that the suit can have like AI in it. They can activate the AI in it, and they have to like code the AI with a personality. Peter chooses himself as the personality for his AI, and that to me was just comedic gold. Just seeing Peter speaking with Peter, quote unquote, and their mannerisms, the conversation, and just how he's getting like almost developing a relationship with it. I found that to be charming. I found that to be hilarious. And I could see the foreshadowing for what the suit would eventually become. It becomes the Venom character, right? But just that I thought was like super cool. And it's great because it's trained off of his personality and his mentality and all of that, his psychology. So that when he no longer wears it and his son Richard picks up the suit and is rocking it, he has his dad, but not quite. But I just appreciated that. I found it charming. I found it hilarious. I found it, you know, Spidey should have jokes, right? I can't really deal with the overly serious Spider-Man. And the humor came out in that for me. So just wanted to share that.
Anybody else?
Well, I mean, in terms of the debate with regards to the ultimate universe versus the absolute universe, yeah, I'm pretty much on board with a lot of your opinions, except I'm actually quite enjoying the absolute Superman. I don't, bash it or everything, but I'm fully enjoying it. I'm like, okay, this man is walking around with his fortress built into his suit. Is this man Spawn? Is he wearing the seventh house of Lita on him? What bro? Your fortress is the suit. That's just awesome. And I like how they dived a little bit more, or at least they ramped up the classism that was happening on Krypton, because let's face it, that was happening on Krypton already. And they just went full ham with it and said, you know what? We ain't going to even deny it in this book. All was not peachy and roses on Krypton. And whoever thought Krypton was some ideal society, it wasn't. Your scientist, your chief scientist comes and tells you, hey, I'm noticing some things here. We could potentially be in trouble. And you basically just laugh the man out the room. It's the exact same thing that happened. And watching this whole thing with him watching him, he was always a good person. And he was always kind of stuff. You saw that. And I'm not certain, I don't care what most people say about it, but when you see his mother bust into that citadel with a lava gun, that was just a precedent. I'm sorry.
I was talking with a friend, right? And he's I've been trying to get him back into comics, but he's like, nah, not really. Not with the way things are going at. But I've been trying to get him to read it. But we were discussing Superman, Absolute Superman. And I was telling him, look, I would have loved for Superman to not speak English at all. They established that he's been roaming everywhere outside of the US. He's been in sub-Saharan Africa. He's been in a lot of poor places in Latin America and Asia and stuff like that.
So when he encountered what's his face, Lewis and so on, that he would be cycling through different languages. I just thought that was a nice little tidbit that they could have used. I also think that he could have done with a bit more edge to him. I don't know. This is different for me in terms of like Jason Aaron writing. Normally, Jason Aaron doesn't write like this. This feels like a whole different person. I've seen various sides to Jason Aaron's writing. From Southern Bastards, that's one thing. Then you go into God Butcher, that entire Thor run, right? That's another thing. But it's an evolution of his writing from Southern Bastards. And then you go into his Avengers run, and that's just pure, unadulterated madness, right? That's a whole different thing altogether. This, I don't know what this is. This don't feel like Jason Aaron. I don't understand what's going on here. I would have expected he to get into Superman and Superman have edge and bite to him. That he's still fundamentally that good character that we know, but with that bit of edge. I can't find a better adjective for it, but be a little more rough, a little more. The upbringing is not the same, so the values are not necessarily the same, and I think the way in which that he would approach dealing with situations would not be the same as the Superman that we know. That he might be a little rough, or he might be a little callous, or be a little Bruce Wayne, kind of. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't want him to be this. He feels kind of punky in a way, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I get what you're saying. Anyway, guys, it's
Yeah.
been real. I think it's time for us to wrap up now. Mark, you got some housekeeping to do. You want to take us out?
All right. Yeah, sure. All right. So this is the Outsiders Comic Podcast, powered by Skylarkin Media. Skylarkin Media. Our brands there are the All Comics platform, which is a Caribbean-grown comic book platform for indie creators, especially those from small island states who might not have the opportunities to get their comics out to the wider world. So you can check us out on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube at Alley Comics. ALLUHWA Comics, COMICS. Check us out there. These episodes are going to be posted to our YouTube channel, and we'll also be posting clips to TikTok and Instagram. So definitely check it out. We'll see if we can get this podcast up onto places like Spotify. But we'll let you know, and for you to stay abreast, check us out on Instagram for sure. That's our main hub for our outreach.
It's been great, guys. I love talking comics with you guys, and we'll be back next week to do some more deep dives and conversations about what we're reading. So all you guys out there, don't forget to shout us and let us know what you're reading as well, and what you enjoyed about the show, what you'd like to hear us talk about. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.